Well, hello, Tampa Bay. I wish you could have some of this fine hot apple cider that my wife Amanda made for me, but guess what? I'm in Charleston and you're there, so man, that is good. Unbelievable. Anyways, let's talk wind. All right, so next couple of days for Tampa Bay, we have a cold front heading in from the west. It's going to fizzle out over the area and then kind of drop down to the south and reform down over South Florida and Key West. A lot of rain and potentials are going to increase down in that area. I think Tampa Bay is going to survive it pretty well with the frontal boundary breaking up over the area. Probably see some southerly winds, southeasterly winds tomorrow, maybe go southwest by Thursday morning into late Thursday afternoon. And then we're going to see a big change in the weather as the next player comes down from the northwest United States. This is going to swoop down into central U.S. and then eventually it's going to end up along the eastern seaboard where it's going to park for several days. So what that means is that behind this frontal boundary, and you can see with that fine line of dry areas at the moment on this surface map, we're going to see these winds start to kick in from the west and from the north. Probably by late Thursday, you may see some of those winds start to arrive. And as Friday rolls around, those winds start to increase, mainly from the north, and then they're going to eventually clock over to the northeast by Saturday, and that's where the gradient really picks up. So with that frontal boundary being draped over South Florida as it presses through, I think we're going to see the gradient line being built right across northern to mid-Florida, and that's where the strongest gradients are going to be for these winds this round. I think South Florida could see that, but it's going to be rather nasty with all those rains and showers and thunderstorms being mixed in with it. So the gradient could prevail down in that area, but we're looking more for North Florida to Central Florida being probably the highest winds out of this event, unless South Georgia and South Carolina join in. Depends on where the center of high pressure is. If it ends up here somewhere, the gradient will lift up into Georgia and South Carolina and include us as well. So that's kind of the pattern for the week. Now, this frontal boundary, let's go ahead and take a look at the GRE on radar. Here's the visible satellite, and you can see where it's kind of broken down over Louisiana and in Mississippi. That cold front really has weakened a lot. If you look at infrared, you can see that cloud swathing kind of stretching all the way across from the southwest United States. And even if we go further out over here, you can see where it joins in the Pacific, where that cloud train sort of rolls in. That's what's called the subtropical jet stream, and that's a product of El Nino keeping this persistent pattern over the southeast United States, over the southern portion of Texas to southeast United States. So that's what keeps these cold fronts coming and these high pressures dropping down from Canada. If you look at water vapor loop, here you can see that fine line back here over about mid-Texas where that line comes in. This map is taking a second to load. And you can see some of these higher level clouds, mid to higher level clouds start to move into the Tampa Bay area now. But the rains, if there are any, you may not see any at all. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 24-hour from WPC NOAA. This is the 24-hour rainfall totals, what they're seeing on their models. And it looks like Tampa stays pretty high and dry for the next 24 hours. So expect some clouds, not a whole lot of rain, maybe a trace as we get into the 5-day stretch where that cold front drops down to South Florida. That's where you see the highest rain potentials for 4 inches down in to Miami and into the Keys. So that's where most of the rain is going to focus. I think Tampa Bay is going to stay right on the fine line of seeing a trace or two of once those northeasterly winds start kicking in. You may see some of that moisture lift up from the south just a little bit, but we'll keep it mainly on the dry side with that strong gradient built in. So let's go ahead and take a look at the we already looked at GRE. Let's look at data scope from weather flow. Here's the satellite with all the winds and some of the weather stations in the area. And not seeing a whole lot of rain on radar. I'm going to disable the satellite, and let's take a dive down into Tampa Bay for right now. Looks like we see a lot of variable winds going on. Out here to the west, we see a southerly flow start to go ahead of that cold front. So as the cold front sweeps in from the west, we'll see some southerly winds start to be produced, and they'll become a little bit more. They'll clock over from the southeast to the south to the southwest as that frontal boundary edges over. And then things get a little bit squirrely on Thursday. Looks like for the winds, because that frontal boundary may take its time getting down to the south, but we'll look at some of those details in just a sec. Here's let's see, Tampa Bay right here, and let's see, we have Tampa Bay Cut J showing 7 knots from the east, and then we have a northerly wind at Egmont Channel. So you can see how variable these winds are right now with all this cloud activity going on, sort of a weak pattern over the area. Now, if you look at the details for Tampa Bay Cut J, let me blow this up just a little bit. And we can follow the models. Now they're all in agreement with starting from tonight. We'll move on. There's a lot of disagreement on the directions for tonight because they're variable in light. As we get into Wednesday into tomorrow, you see that southeasterly flow start to clock south and then eventually to the southwest as that cold front approaches. Now, most of these models have the front kind of pushing through by Thursday, but that may take a little more time than what these models are showing. So I'm not buying that just yet. I think we're going to take a little bit longer. These northerly winds may start to show impulses, especially some of the northeast bends during the daytime, due to some of that heating back behind it. It's going to be a cool air pool kind of settling down where the cold air advects and then your gradient starts to build. But mainly what we're looking for is the build really starting to ramp up on Friday and even into Saturday. So Saturday looks like a pretty strong day. If we look at the GFS models down below, you see 20 to 21 knots with gusting to 28 and 30. I would think in your area, that's kind of a low ball count. I'm thinking 22 to 27 knots with gusts up near 32 to 35 knots as long as that high pressure center stays a little further to the north. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for this weekend. But for today, tomorrow, for tomorrow and Thursday, you'll see that cold front pulling through, maybe some rains and sprinkles, and then Thursday you'll start to see those northerly pulses. But things won't really start to ramp up until Friday, and then we get into the weekend, things look really good. So if all of that fails, then this is pretty much what happens to me, because El Presidente Robert Griffin will not have it any other way if I'm wrong. So I have to report to him if things go south, literally. Y'all have a good night. I'll be back soon. Take care.